what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm starting a new series and it's called How I Edit. And the series is pretty much dedicated to the whole process from start to finish of how I edit all my videos. I've been editing videos since 2010 and I've had loads of opportunities to mess up, to learn, to succeed, and to really hone in and refine my workflow with video editing. And I'm really excited for this because I feel like there's a lot of tips that I feel like I can offer that might be new to you to implement into your own workflow. Again, this whole channel is just based on just providing the best information from someone who's learning and growing and still figuring out their career, but has also learned a lot and has really refined. I feel like I've refined my workflow, but yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of opportunities to definitely learn and be more efficient and ultimately grow as a cinematographer and editor. So with all that being said, welcome to the first episode of How I Edit. Today we're talking about pulling selects and why this process is so important. And if you don't really dial this in early on, it's gonna make your whole editing process for that project a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So yeah, let's jump into why pulling selects are important and my ultimate workflow that I've figured out over the years and that I still use to this day. So this process of pulling selects is often overlooked and not really considered for growing and refining within the filmmaking process. And I feel like this process requires your full attention and ultimately your dedication to trying to make that workflow a lot smoother, a lot quicker, to ultimately make every project as seamless and smooth and as fast as possible. So one major flaw that I've seen with pulling selects and that whole process is that people will go in, we have our timeline here, we have all of our raw clips here, and they'll just go through and they'll just scrub through each clip. And they will find each section that they want, clicking I and O, dragging that clip in, going through this entire process. And ultimately it's slow, you miss a lot, and I feel like you have a lot of opportunity for duplicating your clips, which is a huge beginner move. You don't want to have the same identical clip shown twice in your video. People who don't know video can spot it out super easily. But imagine you have a whole timeline that's ultimately 3 or 4 hours long of raw footage. Going through clip by clip like this isn't really the best way. And a lot of people do that within Premiere. Resolve has their own cut page, which you can have like the little film strip here, and you can see this little line represents each new clip. And you can go in and like append stuff, but I don't know, it still is kind of the same kind of workflow as that, but the way that I've always pulled selects is vastly different than that. So there's one main thing I like to have before I start really cutting any project. I like to know exactly what footage I have, and it could be a whole array of things. It's definitely easier when I'm shooting the project because I know exactly which take is the best. I kind of have a general idea of what I have, but I like scrubbing through all of my footage beforehand. So I have a database in my head of exactly where clips are, and I kind of know the different angles and different feels and what shots work. This ultimately allows me to edit a lot faster than doing this process where I'm pulling clips in as I'm watching it. So if you're not really understanding, I think this is gonna help out. Let me explain. So we have all of our raw clips here. And instead of going clip by clip and pulling things in, I'm gonna create a new timeline. We're gonna call this selects. So we have all of our clips in the timeline here. We have like 30 minutes of it, but I don't really wanna cut through 30 minutes. We're just gonna go through it and I'm gonna show you exactly how I would do this. So if I'm watching this clip, I'm like, okay, like I like the start point here. It's a little jittery, so we'll cut that. Dude, it was so windy on this day. So hard to hold it. Okay, so that's our first in and out point. Grab that little video clip from the first layer to the second layer. We'll continue on. Let's see, we got some windmills here. Yeah, I remember this. Cut that. Then we'll find a good out point. And I usually try to avoid zoom outs and weird movements that don't look natural. I feel like that's like a very amateur way of editing. So I like to avoid those and cut those out. But sometimes if there's a little bit of overlap, I'll usually keep it. Let's just jump ahead. Okay, so we got some walking here. Okay, remember this one. So you see I zoom in there. Let's pull that. just gonna go through, okay, I remember this. And normally I'm not jumping around like this. I'm going through the entire clip, watching it back. But for the tutorial's sake and time's sake, we're not gonna watch through 30 minutes of footage. But just imagine this, but you're watching through every single bit of your footage. So you can see Willem reloads. So you can see Willem starts to move, I move, clip is done. We'll jump ahead. Okay, let's see, I think I zoom in right here. Okay, the ND goes up. And then let's call it good, right? Right there. So I'll usually cut on the NDs as well. Let's jump ahead. Okay, let's just cut this. Let's bring that up. I'm just gonna speed up this process a lot more. So we'll cut these. Okay, so imagine we're doing lots of imagining here. Okay, so imagine we just went through the entire selects timeline. Usually it takes quite a bit of time, but it's so worth it. As you're going through this entire process, you're seeing every bit of footage and you know exactly what in and out points you're able to use. So once we're done pulling our selects, we have our timeline here. And for the tutorial purpose, I'm gonna mark our selects in orange. And I'm gonna mark our extras or trash, I like to call it. We're gonna mark that in green. So we're gonna duplicate this timeline. We're gonna call this one selects cut. Okay, so let's open that up. So we have our timeline opened up. And what you're gonna do is select the first layer, click delete, close the gap, and then bring your selects to the first layer. So now we have a timeline of all of our cut selects. So essentially it's the same timeline, it's just duplicated, so we have a backup of all of our footage, not really cut, but it's cut up into slices of selects and unusables. But now selects cut is just the consolidated version of our selects. And then what I like to do, this is a big tip, we'll duplicate it again, we'll call this selects pull from. And then let's open that one up. So as I'm editing, I will create another track. It's called pancake editing. Let's grab our timeline. So as I'm editing, I'll be like, okay, I want this clip. So I will click D to select it. I will drag this clip up to the second layer, and then I will paste that clip into my timeline here. So essentially the second layer on this selects pull from, it just means it's used. So as I'm editing an entire video, it's showing what I used. And if I end up deleting that clip out of my timeline, I'll drag it back down to the first layer. It's just a good way to stay organized throughout the edit, especially when you have an hour-long video like field trips. You have this huge timeline of selects, and it's just ridiculous to work with. Trying to stay organized is really tough, but it's super important. Otherwise, your whole project can just go haywire and get derailed super quickly. Because I mentioned field trips, let me show you the field trips timeline. It's one way to show the selects in a tutorial form, but I'm going to show you my selects when I actually use it in practice. So we're going to go to field trips episode 3. So let's go into our selects, and then we have, yeah, we'll do selects base first. We have 4 hours and 57 minutes of footage. So here's all of the clips, uncut, start to finish. And it was kind of hard because we had two cameras. We had a Komodo and a C70, and trying to link them, especially with like tons of little clips, it's kind of difficult. But so I spent a lot of time just reorganizing it. So as you can see, I have text layers here. It's a little bonus tip for you guys. I like to add text layers that aren't selectable, and I usually lock them too, but I add text layers to help break up each section. Because we were working with two cameras, I like to keep camera 1 as orange, camera 2 as green. If I'm only working with one camera, I would have color coded all of these sections as well. But as you can see, Everything on layer 2 and layer 4 are selects. I'm gonna disable layer 1 and 3, so now they're gray. Everything that you see in color are selects. And ultimately, when that is cut down, let's go to selects cut. So here are all my selects cut. And they're still on the same layer because I didn't bring them down there. So we went from 457 to 415. So we cut out, what is that, 30 minutes or something? 40 minutes? Okay. Now let's go to selects pull from. And this is the timeline that I used for the entire edit as I'm pulling through. Everything on 1 and 3 again, I didn't use. These are all like the base clips that I didn't touch, but everything on 2 and 4 is what I end up using. And this just made the process way easier. And as I'm editing through, I know exactly what I've used, what I haven't used, and if I need to go back and find more footage, I can look at the base tracks, which are tracks 1 and 3, and be like, oh, like I need a walking clip. Here's one that I haven't used yet, but here's one that I have used. So it just helps you stay organized, because when you're in an edit and trying to be creative and build out a whole story, the last thing you need is to be scrambling around trying to find clips that you haven't used yet in the midst of a whole bin of clips, because we all know that as projects go on and they get bigger, they get unorganized really quickly. Another tip is that when I'm going through sections, I have another layer on top. It's like an adjustment layer or a solid, and I'll just drag it through so I know how far I am within that section. I've only really done that on the field trips episodes, and I think it works out pretty well. I really enjoy it. So ultimately, the benefit of all this is just being able to stay organized and to be efficient and to be a fast editor. Having your timeline set up like this allow you to have backups of all of your selects, so you're not having to pull through everything. The selects pull from is really nice to have, so you know exactly what you've pulled into your edit, and you know exactly what you haven't pulled into your edit yet. So if you're looking for more footage to use, you know exactly what you can use, and then you just drag it up. It doesn't really take that much time to set it all up. I think that groundwork of being organized and being diligent towards that, I think it's so important to have your edit run as smoothly as possible. That workflow of pulling selects inside of your bin and dragging the ins and outs as you're watching each clip, as you're editing, I don't think it's that efficient. When I'm editing and I'm going through sections, I feel like I'd lose track of the clips that I've already pulled from. But with this, like, I was editing sections at a different time. I was editing the Palm Springs section first, and then I did, I think, Anza for a bit, and then I did Joshua Tree, then I did La Jolla, then the Palm Springs Sunset. I kind of bounced around, and being able to have everything in here and having the solid color to be able to show me how far I was within those selects, it made that process a lot smoother, especially as more problems arise as you're cutting, which it always does. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave a like if you learned something new, and leave a comment about the different ways that you pull your selects. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't. I have tons of editing videos and filmmaking tips and gear videos coming out. Yeah, with all that being said, that was the first episode of How I Edit, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.